Welcome to part 2, the podcast about podcasts at the Sacramento Media Center. I'm John Christensen. With me is my good colleague and friend, and just the person who keeps me in line all the time, April Potter.
Hello. I don't know that I've been keeping you in a line the last couple months. I've let him wow out for the last half of 2021.
Well, trust me, I'm not in great shape as I would have been if you were. So, I mean, it's always, though, you do give me great inspiration. Thank you.
You know, that's what women do. That's our role in life.
Is that like a muse, maybe? Well, you do it well.
But I enjoy these podcasts with you and getting a chance to sit and do something a little different.
I do too. We have lots of fun things to share, and it's just great stories. So,
yes.
Well, we had a podcast before this about podcast creations and how to get started, and it got so good. We thought, there's a part 2 of this, and this is part 2. We want to talk about the more nitty gritty about making these podcasts happen. So we discussed about the 5 things about, follow good podcasts, know your story, and don't worry about how you sound, hire a good editor. And we also talked about the value of having a producer like you and myself who has a good ear for the stuff and helps you move forward. Talked about also doing a continual series. It's always smart, and you'll be able to gain an audience that way, but stay consistent with your messaging and your series, whatever you start, whether it's once a week, once a month, whatever. Also, we mentioned about getting a good podcast service that pushes your podcast listing to the great services like iTunes and Spotify. But now let's talk about the nitty gritty about our little secrets of doing podcasts. You brought up a good point about how putting visuals to the podcast, and you're going to integrate YouTube with that, don't you?
Yes. So I am definitely visual. I love to listen, but I've noticed any of the podcasts I've listened to always have a video version. Because they tend to, that's just where we are in the digital world, is everyone is recording in multiple ways. So I've seen even Dax Shepard, who, I'm going to name some actors who have really great armchair podcast, I think is his. So he gets into his attic, I want to say, with his counterpart, and they sit cross-legged in chairs. They do their podcast in the same format as we do, but they do the video version too. So depending on who you are as a human, or if you want to be at home, or if you're at work and you want to listen to it, audio. But if you want to watch them, because I know we still really love to engage and see a person's face, and you feel, especially now with COVID, of people being separated, you still really want to engage and see that person and see the faces they make and see that emotion. Right. We still really are emotion bound.
We are. Indeed.
That YouTube is still a playing platform for podcasts. So my clients earlier I had referenced in podcast 1 that we just did, the first half of pushing their YouTube channel. And what I do for them is it's just their graphic, their logo with an audiogram over it. But like I said in the last one, I'd referenced, they talked about San Francisco in the 1940s, in the 1960s, in a time of real big change. Indeed. On a major demographic with players. And I'm like, I'm going to have to go look these people up because I'm now intrigued and I didn't know that this was a thing, that I want to show those in a way where it might not necessarily be showing the people behind the mics, but it's going to be showcasing their story that they're telling.
What they're talking about.
It's it's an audio it's a documentary.
It's a slideshow.
Yeah.
Multimedia experience.
Yeah, without having to necessarily be in the studio filming that footage.
Indeed.
Just kind of, and that's not an every time basis. So you see podcasts that will every single time put an audio to it. And then there's other formats where you're like, it just really is appropriate to do a multimedia, something extra with this particular one.
Well, that's interesting. And one of the things that I find that is challenging, you see them, especially when you have the pros who do a live stream. It's like a radio show. They'll just do the radio show and not even do any editing. That's for experienced people who've done this a lot. But when we do normal podcasts, a lot of it is just edited and completed storytelling or audio dialogue that we edit. We edit a lot, especially a lot of clients we work with or anyone who has not done this very often. They may not have the diction or the speech potential to deliver without a lot of uhs and errors or double words, you know what I mean, stuff like that, or long pauses.
And you just might have a tick we recognize that every single person is unique, and they may actually have a stutter. You may actually have have a something that is part of your physical makeup that does not allow you to speak in a complete sentence at any given time. We're not going to take that away from you. We're going to allow you to be your full self and showcase that, because you are connecting to others and showing them that this is possible.
Indeed.
People do want to hear you. What you have to say is valid.
Absolutely. And it should be your voice. So as producers, how do we do that? We edit these things. Now, I use Sony Vegas as audio, even though it's mostly for video as well, but it's got a really good audio function that I'm able to edit pretty fast and easily with. What do you use?
Adobe Audition.
Adobe Audition, another great program, very good program. And we can do audio adjustments and treatment and levels and sound. We can add in music at the beginning and at the end. That's kind of what we do. But what I like to do when I do a podcast recording, which we're doing now and what we did even earlier, is we have separate microphones and we have individuals either in the same room or sometimes maybe separate rooms far away, because we want to avoid what's called crosstalk, but we'll talk about that a little bit. But we record each person on a separate channel.
Yes.
And here's a bit of it. We now have mixers that can record up to 8 different channels.
Right.
It's only $250 for one of those. So it's not that expensive. So again, separate tracks. Why we like separate tracks? Because we can then adjust each track on level, and we can then maybe turn it down when someone is talking over someone else, and hopefully there's not much crosstalk, and still be able to make it sound clear, and it's easier to understand when you're able to control each channel. And it gives us a lot of options. Again, the options, that's what we want. And when we take out uhs or stutters or double words, we're just clipping them off and shortening up the timeline, and it flows better. And when I ever do that, I always do the cut, I back up, and I listen to it, see how it sounds. If it sounds too abrupt, if it sounds unnatural, I'll undo it right there. So just leave it in.
Right.
And like you mentioned, sometimes we leave the uhs.
You can't clip it. You have to. It still has to sound natural. So
Yes.
if you cut it at a certain point, and you're like, yeah, it's clean, but now it sounds like Frankenstein. I don't even know what this is right now. Like, no, you have to leave it in. Certain things we have to just go, I can't do anything about that.
So and the real talent is you have to have a good ear for
Yeah.
this. And when you have a good ear for this, you're fine. And you'll be a good editor for
And we
that.
don't know how to tell you how to have a good ear. It's just, it comes with practice, and it comes with talking, and it comes with building your confidence in that.
And your client will be so happy when you make them sound really good, because their confidence is going to be low even after they're done. There's always that way. There's always that depression. Don't worry, I'm going to make it sound good. And we do. We deliver, and that's why we work.
It's also because we don't want to be embarrassed either.
It's true. It's our name on the product.
You know, you're hot. Either one of us gets hired. It's because we really want to see you succeed. We want to succeed. We love what we do for our work, and our creatives ourselves. Like, this is not our content,
Right.
but it's fun and we enjoy it. So no matter what, like, I know that we always bring our 100% to it, because that's part of the job. That's getting it done and making sure that we create really positive experiences for people.
Absolutely. And today we have lots of options. Right now, it's very affordable to purchase microphones and recording unit. We also right now we're in the same room, but there's times where it's more convenient. And this is all actually came about during the pandemic, where podcast recordings were forced to use Zoom. Now, here's the interesting part of that. There's lots of services out there that do great recording. They're designed for podcast recording. Riverside's one. A whole bunch of other ones are out there that say, look, just have your client click on this, and then we can record and then deliver the audio. Here's why we always go with Zoom. First of all, Zoom didn't sound that great at the beginning. Zoom has improved their quality. Zoom has given a lot more options for us audio recording engineers. But the cool part about Zoom is that everybody has used Zoom.
Right.
They know how to use Zoom. They're acquainted with it, whether they're professional voiceover artists or whether they're just a guest for whatever, and they have insight to give on your podcast. Everyone knows how to use Zoom, because why? That was the standard. That's what we did when we were all locked up at home.
Right.
So Zoom becomes the go-to service. Now, here's the fun part with Zoom. And if you haven't used Zoom, or if you're a person who wants to record a podcast, Zoom gives you many options. One, people can be at home, and you can talk to anybody all over the world practically. We've done that. And that's the cool part. So if you got guests who's in New Jersey or Denver, just cool part. Just tell them, hey, what's a good time for us to meet? And let's just go ahead and do the podcast recording.
Right.
You could look at each other, but here's the cool thing about that. We say, look, don't worry about how you look because this is just audio only, but you can look at each other. And when we do it, I have the client come here to the studio in our room here at the Creator's Den. We have a computer. It is equipped with a nice microphone that's plugged into the computer. Zoom is using that microphone. It's a ribbon microphone, so it sounds really good. So with that, as long as that person who I will call the host to introduce or talk, at least they sound good. Everyone else can sound, I'm over here at the front lines of the whatever. That's okay because it's acceptable.
Host should always sound amazing.
The host should always sound amazing. That's a real key there.
It's like a Johnny Carson thing. You're like, you better sound amazing.
Yep, exactly. And the person may be on the phone and it sounds way over here, Rocky. But that's okay. It kind of gives a aesthetic appeal, which is, okay, this person's talking remotely.
And FYI, just so you know, I'm going to pop in here. This is not sponsored by Zoom, by the way. Like any of the products or any of the things here, like this is not a sponsored podcast. This is literally what is being used by myself and by John and by the people we've worked with that we've seen is working well now. And, we're always finding things. So if we are using it, we will share that with you. But I just needed to put that disclaimer, none of this is sponsored content.
This is for your benefit to know how we do it.
It's just, readjusting to what we've been handed and what the world has been handed in a very short amount of time and how to readjust.
And move forward.
Yeah, we still have life to live. We're still alive.
We're still alive.
We still have stuff to be inspired by.
Yes, and lots more stories to tell. Yeah.
Is another way just to be inspired.
Indeed.
So if you're sitting at home going, what can I do? You can do this.
Right.
So we've talked a lot about, knowing your story, places to go. What are some other things about Zoom in particular? Because since we're on Zoom land, that we need to know about, or what are some?
Apparently, they don't really tell you, but it's interesting. When you record using Zoom, there's a record button. There's two options, one on computer and one on the cloud. Well, people think, cloud's best because it's got all the bandwidth. Truthfully, what you need to do is record on computer. And here's what happens. What they actually do is record everyone's input on the cloud, and when you end your session, it then saves all that recording on the cloud and it sends it to your computer.
Oh.
That's what that really means.
Okay.
What they should say is record on cloud, but send to computer in, you'll love this, separate tracks.
Way better. Okay.
Way better. And here's the beauty of it. When we talked about when you do two microphones in a room, you get some crosstalk, and that happens, and you have to then, in editing, adjust for that. With Zoom, when it's separate tracks, there's no crosstalk at all, because it's taking it from the source from way out and wherever, from person in Denver to person in Texas, and the person who's doing the hosting here, doing the questions here at the studio. So it really is convenient, and you get separate tracks. Well, that's great, because if a person has a dog barking in the background when someone's talking, you say, don't worry about it. I'm going to go ahead and adjust that in the volume, and it cleans it up.
Trying to do that on a solo track,
it's insane.
That's where the Botox invoice comes into play.
And she's right. Oh my God, the headache with a single track, because especially one may be too loud and you have to adjust. It's really a lot more editing.
Yes.
When you have separate tracks, it's so much easier to EQ each track separately, make it sound more professional sounding and clearer. And you're able to do that when you record to computer when you hit the selection on Zoom. Huge advantage. Huge advantage.
And it just saves that norm. Like, you don't have to do anything special. It just
When you end your session, it stops, and then it sends you to the folder, your Zoom folder on your computer, all the tracks separately with their names, people's names on each one. And it's just so easy just to drop and download.
And is there a fee for that?
Nope.
It's
all part
free?
of the process. Yeah. Well, when I say free, if you have I pay for a Zoom hosting.
Okay.
Because there's a 40-minute limit when you do free, as I understand. I could be wrong.
Okay.
But if you buy it, which I do, because I just include it in my fees to the client. And
because I don't do a lot. I don't do the Zoom recording. Like I like that live in person.
Well, you just call me
in,
and then I just go ahead and use my account, and then you record.
Oh, do you hear? I'm like, ha 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 ha. Look at that little hookup.
Because you could be. Here's the beauty of it too. Let's say you have other people who won't speak, but they need to hear, and they need to monitor, the producers, or like yourself. I could be the engineer, and I will have my video off and my microphone off. You can be the observer producer. You can have your microphone off and your video off, and let the 3 or 4 people or 2 people talk. And that's how that really is convenient. truthfully, we could all be in different locations and still get a nice project done. Just the convenience of that, just scheduling alone.
Well, because honestly, it generally is more than one person at any given time with a podcast. I want to say it's absolutely a rarity to have one person that is on a microphone. So whenever a podcast is happening, it is 2+ people.
Indeed.
And like you said, could be in multiple different situations. So having the Zoom is super duper super helpful.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're having a topic that has a key contact in another state.
Absolutely. And it's so much more. We've done more podcasts based on that because of availability.
Right.
And safety. It just worked well. So, and again, it's always back to how's this sound in the long run. It's one of those things where, I don't know if it's called genre or just media acceptance, that people are used to now hearing Zoom calls. And a lot of TV news stations do that now. Reporters report from home. Now,
I'm shocked there hasn't been like Zoom teachers, like it's a Zoom movement, because Zoom is just like propelled to the forefront of like, how can we communicate to the world? Let's Zoom it.
Well, props to Zoom. They've actually done a pretty good job keeping up with the pace.
Right.
I mean, there's been some changes made, and I've liked every change, and
Okay.
it's done really, really well. A lot of our streams, where we do live streams for, is through Zoom. Here's the other thing, too. When you are recording, and again, for those of you who are going to break out into producing, we highly encourage you. This is the way to do it. We don't mind sharing our secrets because they're great tips. And if you got good ones,
You'll come find us at some point just to ask a question, or come see the studio at Stack Media Center, which has, like he said, we're in the Creator's Den, which is literally created for this purpose in general. It's very comfortable, have the mic situated. So if you do want to at least, maybe start your new adventure into podcasting, maybe get a professional experience to know what this is like. And if you choose to either stick with it, awesome. Right. And if not, awesome. Like, go home and do it yourself. But no, get the knowledge. That's where we're in a base of like new knowledge.
Absolutely.
So what else do you have on us on like for podcasting? Like what's coming up? And
right, indeed. Well, I'd say when you're recording, I might chime in when we may have an internet problem and your conversation got squeezed or mumbled. Then we'll have to stop, back up, and just pick up where you left off. Don't worry, I'll put it all together.
Right.
And that happens once or twice every time I do this, but it works. And people understand. It's, oh, okay, good, I want to restate that anyway. And I said, well, you know what? It's okay if you said something. Well, you know what? Let me try that again. Was that okay? Can I do that, John? The answer is yes. I will edit this together and make it perfect. And that's what we do. So sometimes you have to jump in and say, yeah, I need you to re-say that again. Or the way you said it, can you say thank you again because you walked over him a little bit? Just say thank you. Okay, thank you. Hey, that's all I need. And then, sometimes there's always an opening and a closing. You may have the person do, whoever your host is, have them do a couple closings just to get a better quality of it. But it works, and that's just the techniques of recording. But Zoom makes it all possible.
That's awesome. Yeah, earlier in my podcast, before our 2 podcasts, I had to do the same exact thing, was stop at certain points, have them restate, heard, the stomp overs, just little things that you're like, we have to take that back. And because I didn't have their script, sometimes I just don't like to always have their script in my face. I'm like, I kind of want to be surprised what you're going to talk about too, because it's really fun.
Yeah, that way
it's fun for me, and it helps me because I'm also allowing myself to be, even though I'm producing and you're going through the edit, like I need to be surprised by what you're saying, because I, as the audience person, I'm receiving it in a different way that I still like to keep myself as an audience member, even though being a producer and editor at the same time, to allow that to hit my ear and my being in a way that still surprises me. But then I get to clean it up too, going, oh my God, that was freaking fantastic.
Right.
And I love that. But can we do that one more time in a different delivery, because you weren't so sure on your lead-in sentence, or there was something there that I just want your confidence to back that, because you have it right there. So I will have them reread it, because I'm super invested, but I felt their little tinge where I'm like, oh, do you need a hug right now? Because I will come hug you if you need that. I will be that support. But that's also what you get when being in person. Like, I'm here to kind of coddle in a way, but allow you to expand your wings and to do what you need to do.
Now, you just made a really good point. And really what's important here, when you hire someone like April or myself or whatever you're doing, here's the key. When you're listening, and when you and I are listening while we're recording this, and you're right, you don't read the script or you don't watch the script because you're listening with an ear. We're actually listening with our editor ear, because we are editing in our head, even though we may not remember every item. But
literally time marking.
Time marking, yes.
I will log in my head when something happened. I may not have written it down, but my brain allows me to go, marker, I already know it, 32 minutes. I have a spot where I need to do a...
And if you hear something, that's going to be hard to edit, let's do that again. That's because we're listening with an editor ear. And that's what a producer, audio engineer, who should do both, be able to have that skill, because it goes a long way. And it makes it so much faster and sounds much better. And podcast being the disruptive medium that it is, the reason why it's so pivotal, and what just April just mentioned about us telling our stories, is that it's not hard to make, and it's very affordable, practically affordable, almost free.
Way affordable.
And it's easy to do.
It takes way less time to produce a podcast than it would for you to do your video content, just so you know.
Absolutely.
We don't have to edit, or you don't have to edit what you look like or your physical nuances. All the little mini things that you do does not come into play when it comes to audio. We do have to make sure you sound good, you sound clear, your message is brought to fruition, but it is way more cost effective for you to get started in delivering your message.
Absolutely. So, only thing that's holding you back is yourself.
And I think that's in any area of life. So
it is.
It's really hard to look in the mirror and point the finger, but you know that with pointing that finger, you can literally hit press play and and get going literally same day.
You know, we highly encourage you, if you have any questions, feel free to seek us out, but we really, really are looking forward to hearing your work. Send us your links. We'd love to hear your podcast.
Yeah, tag SAC Media Center on there so we know like where to find you, what it might be. The world, it might feel like it's small and we don't know where to go, but we're all out here to connect and to grow and to still share our personal experiences, and this is just wonderful.
One more addition.
Yes.
We'll do this real quick. So also, something I think is very important is that your description, whatever you upload your podcast to, make it verbose. Make it complete to where it's a quick understanding, quick read, what your podcast is all about. But wouldn't you also say hashtagging too would be a way to also promote your podcast?
Absolutely. Like people make fun of the hashtags, and you know, you can go on Instagram and be like, there's so many hashtags to be found, but if you have a niche market and you are wanting to be found, that's the easiest way. And especially if you have your show title and your content, like use that. Yes. Put it in your SEO. Like once you get started, like there's a whole other rabbit hole you can go down as far as ways to be found and be seen and all of that. But using your hashtags, making sure you have a clear, defined vocabulary for your demographics is major. And then when you're out and about and you're setting up your socials, because that's part of it. You can do your podcast and record it, and then it's just sitting there in your bank. Right. What's next? That might be, John, our third podcast.
I like that.
On what's next is the different mediums. Like we've referenced, you post it on your Podbean and SoundCloud and Buzzsprout and iTunes. But that's not the only place you can play it.
You could do a lot more.
There's Instagram. There's you still have your normal modes of shareability, and then going further beyond that. So podcast is literally just an introduction into your business. So
it's a growing trend too. A lot of people are loving podcasts, and they're consuming them daily. Well, April, it's always a pleasure, and folks, as you know, April and I have been good friends for years and colleagues. Let's do this again.
Yeah, we'll have episode 3 of podcasting coming up in the next couple of weeks or so.
I like that plan. Sounds good. Take care, everybody.
Talk to you soon. Get out there and podcast, you guys, and send us your links. So don't forget to hashtag us on SAC Media Center. Actually, just SAC Media Center. It's not .com. Yep. But if you want to check us out, it is sacmediacenter.com.
.com. That's correct. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.